Remember those gloom and doom predictions about government finances back in 2011? Pundits were boldly bemoaning a decade or two of hard slogging to turn around swollen debts and deficits. Seen the numbers lately? They are melting like ice in an oven. Is the cause some unforeseen anomaly, an unpredictable windfall, or did the number crunchers just get it wrong? Fiscal finances are fickle. A recession can turn a sizable surplus into an alarming deficit in a heartbeat. In our lifetimes, we are more accustomed to the latter than the former, so the reappearance of red ink has even regular folk fearing we will be swimming in the stuff for some time. It escapes them, as it escaped the 2011 analysts, that the opposite is also true. Do the right things, and a deficit can turn into a surplus much faster than even the models predict. Unconvinced? Canadians should know better. Our consolidated debt to GDP ratio was heading toward 100% back in the early 1990s, and the ratings agencies became very nervous. Concern booted out an historic political party, gave birth to another, and induced an otherwise inclined political party to embark on the most scathing austerity program we had ever seen. It cascaded from the federal to the provincial level, weighing heavily on growth in a period that was dubbed the jobless recovery. Doomsayers spoke of a lost decade or more, and yet within a decade, the harsh fiscal measures generated an embarrassment of riches, enabling significant debt retirement. Superior fiscal fundamentals drew much post-crisis attention to Canada, but observers missed the austerity lesson. Tough medicine gets results, and fast. Without a doubt, economies all over the OECD administered near-lethal doses of cutbacks, often to howls of protest. In the case of Europe, fiscal tightening induced a protracted six-quarter recession on the heels of the false recovery. Even the U.S., accused of doing little to combat its cavernous fiscal deficit, invoked measures that took almost 2 percentage points away from GDP growth last year. So, has the pain been worth it? The numbers shout a resounding yes. Most European economies are seeing a significant improvement in their deficit positions. From a budget shortfall that ballooned to 8% of GDP in 2009, France is now moving in on the Maastricht target of 3%. The federal deficit in Germany, as much as 2.7% of GDP immediately following the crisis, is now at just 0.5%, and the consolidated balance was in surplus in 2012. Impressive, but what of the deeply distressed European economies? Well, the Irish federal deficit was unthinkably double-digit back then. Last fall, it was under 2%. Spain, a deficit at over 10% of GDP, is now less than 4%. Get this, Greek red ink was worth 20% of the economy late in 2009. Last fall, spending and revenues were balanced. Now, admittedly, that was a one-quarter wonder, but the improvement is remarkable. It's sustainable and closing in on a persistent balance. This is the stuff of dramatic headlines, but it seems the current appetite for crow is low. Fiscal hawks were arguably toughest on the U.S. As the top economy, managing the only real reserve currency, its apparent intransigence had the world on edge. Two back-to-back deficits in 2009-10, then computed at 10% of GDP, were seen as unconscionable. But the naysayers were silenced by the 2.5% deficit at the end of last year. Japan, with all its fiscal woes, is neck and neck with the U.S. The UK is alone, stuck at an unimproved 4% since early 2011. The bottom line? Government finances are generally showing rapid improvement, a payback from the protracted period of penury. It means that in 2014, austerity is all but over. With governments no longer weighing growth down, economic numbers are virtually guaranteed to improve. Until next week, I'm Peter Hall.